To Battleground Alberta now, where we are ramping up our coverage, as you just saw, of the race to replace Alison Redford. In the last week before PC members vote for a new leader, as you saw there, I will be in Edmonton, looking forward to it, covering the race live as it happens. Please join us Saturday night. Now, keeping a close eye on Alberta PC news. The party has been plagued, of course, with spending scandal after spending scandal this year. Of course, and that's all led. That's why we're having a leadership race. And former Premier Alison Redford is leaving one last bill for taxpayers to pick up, and this is a doozy, folks. Albertans are going to pay over $12,000 for her official portrait. That's right, an official portrait, $12,000. A completion date has yet to be determined, but the government says it will hang this portrait on the third floor of the legislature next to former Premier Ed Stelmach's. His painting cost $10,000. All right. Now, former Edmonton Mayor Stephen Mandel is considering a return to politics, but only if PC leadership candidate Jim Prentice wins. Mandel, who endorsed Prentice back in June, says he would possibly run for a seat in the provincial legislature, but only under a Prentice leadership. Prentice says Mandel would be a great asset to any team of people who would want to get the province back on track. And voting for the next Alberta PC leader begins tomorrow. Members of the PC party can cast a ballot online or by telephone. The voting begins at 6 a.m. Mountain Time, 6 a.m. Mountain, and continues until 6 p.m. Mountain Time on Saturday. The new e-voting system is the first of its kind to be used in an Alberta leadership contest. And a new Alberta poll is out, likely the last one that we're going to see before members of the PC party will have to chew on. Of course, it'd have to be up before 6 a.m. tomorrow, so there you go. The poll is by the firm Leger. It's a poll of all Albertans and not just PC members. That's important. Leger found 22% preferred Prentice, twice as much of the support provincially for Rick McIver and Thomas Lukaszuk. But look at the number of Albertans who don't know or say it doesn't matter. Combined, that's more than half of those polled. So this sure doesn't sound or look like a Prentice is the juggernaut on the verge of winning the political hearts of the entire province. The poll also asked Albertans which party they would put in government if an election were held now. The answer, not the PCs. The Wild Rose, the opposition party, is at 33%, while the Progressive Conservatives are at 29%. Now, both parties have gained support a bit over the summer, +2 points and +3 points respectively since June. The Liberals and the NDP are both under 20%, and both those parties have faded a bit over the summertime. Now, today, pretty much any Albertan listening to the radio was going to hear an ad from the McIver campaign, and that ad was hitting hard at frontrunner Jim Prentice. These ads began playing at 5 a.m., Alberta time, of course, and the campaign says they bought lots and lots of ad on just about every private sector radio station. Here it is.
Do we really want another premier with ethical issues? Jim Prentice has admitted to giving away free memberships to the PC party. His campaign is buying votes to win the premier's office. Maybe someone should tell him that public trust isn't for sale. Jim Prentice, he's just another insider who'll keep things the way they are. It's time for some common sense new thinking. Beginning this Friday, vote Rick McIver for PC leader, authorized by the Rick McIver campaign.
And of course, candidate McIver was asked today about his decision to go after Prentice.
The reason we're having this campaign is essentially, in my view, the root of it is ethical issues that ended up in us needing a new premier at the end of the day. So ethics matter and positive standards for Alberta matter as we go forward. So one of the disagreements I have with my one competitor, Mr. Prentice, is that I think it's important to sell memberships for $10 to build up the value of the party. And I've been saying for a long time that giving them away is wrong and it devalues the party. And I'm just reminding Albertans that there's a clear choice here to be made.
All right, so lots to chew on here with our friend and former Alberta PC MLA, Rick Worman, in our Calgary studio. Rick, I don't know where we're going to start unpacking things, but maybe let's start with the decision today by the McIver team to take some serious shots at Jim Prentice. And I'm told one of the reasons that they have to go to the radio wave is that they, of course, as you know, none of the campaigns have access to the lists of people the other campaigns signed up. If they did, they just robocall these ads in. And so this is why they have to go sort of public with it. But is it too late for McIver to start taking some shots at Prentice? Because we know a little negative ad sometimes can work.
Yeah, I guess they can. You know, I would say, though, David, that the die is pretty much cast. The poll that you showed where Prentice had probably twice as high approval rating than the other two candidates put together, I think probably reflects how the distribution of memberships is, even though it was, you know, a different survey, not a survey of members of the party. I actually, my first impression of what Rick McIver has done over the last couple of days is scorched earth. If he really does have an interest in the future of the party governing in Alberta, I don't think he'd be as strident as he was. You know, on the other hand, if it was within a couple of votes, then sometimes these things matter, but I just don't think it's going to get him any traction, and it's certainly not going to get him in the on the Christmas list of Jim Prentice.
No, absolutely not. I think Prentice, McIver had a speech yesterday, a breakfast speech yesterday, and again was taking some shots at Prentice. I think Prentice's comment in the wake of that was he was disappointed that in fact McIver was trying to throw this mud around at the end. Let me go to some of the numbers in the poll. This is front page news in the Calgary Herald, front page news in the Edmonton Journal today, and there were lots of numbers to chew on. And I was trying to figure out, okay, you know, combined, the votes for Lukaszuk and McIver, will they be a certain amount, and will Prentice get over the 50+1 threshold, or is he going to be in the high 40s first time out? And that's I don't know if you got any more enlightened by looking at these poll numbers, but I'm thinking it might be a little closer than maybe Prentice expected.
Well, here's the deal. I believe, my instincts are, in the conversations I've had, is I think that Jim Prentice has control of between 31 and 35,000 memberships. At the same time, I would think that McIver and Lukaszuk together have about 10,000 memberships, maybe 15. So now the question becomes, who gets the highest turnout based on the number of memberships that they have out? If Lukaszuk and McIver can turn out 60–65%, then you got a second ballot. But generally what happens is on these things, David, my experience over the years, you generally get out between 50 and 55% of the votes that you have distributed, sold, or given away. So I would, if I was a betting man, I'd say it's a 3-2 odds that Jim Prentice is going to win this on the first ballot.
Like I said, it could be pretty close. That's short odds. And I think back to the race that Redford won. I mean, the most recent one, and the first ballot there, I think, was a bit of a surprise, and turnout was low. I think for Gary Marr was the one who was supposed to walk away with that one, and his turnout didn't show up.
That's it. And, you know, Alison Redford was willing to go out and make a deal with school teachers and unions and nurses. And I saw the lineups of people buying memberships on the second ballot. These candidates aren't willing to do that. So I don't see the same sort of thing happening there. There was a real motivation for many people who were not traditional members of the party to vote and get Alison Redford in. That hasn't happened this time around.
Let me ask you, I guess the good news, if there is some, and reading some of the commentary again in the Herald and the Journal on this poll is, the good news is support for the PCs seems to have bottomed, and if you believe the polls that it has grown maybe a couple of points, okay, that would be something for the next leader to build on, but still behind the Wild Rose, and obviously if there was an election, it's very much it looks very much like a dogfight right now.
Yeah, and I think that bodes well for Jim Prentice to be this close just during a leadership race, and you know, a pretty acrimonious one at that. And so, but you know, the real test is this, David. The new premier, if it's Jim Prentice, must go out and run a by-election. And everybody on this planet knows that by-elections are risky and they don't really reflect the current feeling at general elections. So that's one risk. And I think there's 4 other potential by-elections that could occur with Alison Redford stepping down and some of the MLAs running for nominations federally. So it's going to be exciting around here for the next 18 months.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd forgotten about the jump to the federal side. All right, Rick Worman in Calgary tonight. Thanks so much for joining us, Rick. Appreciate it. And let's see what happens in a couple of days.
Okay, David.